Have you ever wondered what actually happens inside a machine's mind when it tries to decode the rarest personality type on Earth? I mean, really picture it. Lines of code humming, algorithms firing, pattern recognition systems doing what they do best, and then suddenly, they hit an INFJ. The system pauses. The predictions wobble. The confidence drops. Because INFJs aren't just rare. They're contradictory in ways machines aren't built to understand. They're quiet but intense, private yet deeply expressive, logical but emotionally attuned, idealistic while being painfully realistic. And when artificial intelligence, something designed to simplify human behavior into readable patterns, tries to read someone who lives beyond patterns, things get weird fast. Today we're stepping into that collision point, where cold computation meets human depth, and trust me, what unfolds says as much about the limits of AI as it does about the hidden complexity of INFJs themselves. We live in a time where AI can predict your next purchase, autocomplete your thoughts, detect your mood from a handful of words, and map your behavior across platforms with eerie accuracy. It knows when you're likely to scroll, click, disengage, or react emotionally. It understands trends. It understands averages. It understands consistency. But INFJs are not averages. They're outliers in a system that depends on predictability. And that's where the tension begins. Because AI doesn't understand, in the human sense. It calculates. It correlates. It looks for stable signals and repeats them at scale. And INFJs, by their very nature, refuse to broadcast stable signals. To understand why AI struggles so much, you first have to understand how it reads people at all. Modern personality reading AI is built on machine learning models trained on massive datasets. It looks at the language you use, how abstract or concrete your words are, how emotionally charged your sentences feel, how often you post, how quickly you reply, what topics you gravitate toward, how your tone shifts over time, and how consistent your behavior is across different environments. It compares you to millions of others and assigns probabilities. You're likely introverted. Probably intuitive. Strong thinking preference. Moderate emotional expression. It's all statistical confidence, never certainty. For many people, this works surprisingly well. Extroverts are loud in the data. Sensors talk about tangible details. Thinkers argue cleanly and logically. Feelers openly express emotional states. But INFJs don't leave clean trails. They leave fragments. One deep post. Weeks of silence. A thoughtful comment that feels like it came from nowhere. A sudden burst of insight followed by disappearance. From an AI's perspective, it's like trying to predict weather patterns using 3 scattered clouds and a poem about the sky. One of the first places AI stumbles is the INFJ communication paradox. INFJs speak in layers. They can sound abstract and philosophical one moment, then grounded and practical the next. They can write something poetic that feels emotional, then immediately follow it with a structured, almost clinical breakdown of a problem. I systems expect stylistic consistency. If you talk like a philosopher, you're expected to keep doing that. If you communicate logically, the algorithm assumes that's your default. INFJs violate that assumption constantly. They don't communicate from habit. They communicate from intention. An INFJ adjusts their voice based on who they're speaking to and what that person needs. They don't ask, "How do I usually sound?" They ask, "What will land here?" To a machine trained to identify stable personality markers, this looks like contradiction. The data says intuitive, then suddenly sensing. feeling, then thinking. Structured, then fluid. The AI doesn't see adaptability. It sees inconsistency. Then there's the problem of absence. INFJs often have remarkably small digital footprints. They don't post often. They don't overshare. They observe far more than they broadcast. And machine learning systems are hungry. They need data volume to reduce uncertainty. When someone posts hundreds of times a month, the AI has plenty to work with. When someone posts once every few weeks, and each post feels like it came from a different emotional altitude, the system starts guessing. And when INFJs do speak, they don't speak lightly. Their words tend to be distilled, intentional, dense with meaning. One sentence can carry emotional nuance, philosophical depth, and moral reflection all at once. To another human, especially another intuitive type, that feels powerful. To AI, it's problematic. Because sentiment analysis prefers clarity. Positive. Negative. Neutral. INFJs often live in the yes and emotional space. Hope mixed with grief. Peace braided with longing. Concern wrapped in compassion. So the AI averages it out. It flattens the signal. What was emotionally rich becomes neutral. What was deeply human becomes statistically ambiguous. The machine doesn't recognize emotional depth. It recognizes emotional polarity. And INFJs refuse to be emotionally one-dimensional. Another major obstacle is what you might call the INFJ privacy shield. INFJs can talk for hours about life, meaning, humanity, trauma, growth, and transformation without ever revealing much about themselves. They speak in universals. They frame insights as observations rather than confessions. They guide conversations instead of starring in them. From a human perspective, this feels wise and safe. From an AI perspective, it's frustrating. Personality reading systems rely heavily on first-person disclosure. I feel, I experienced, I struggle with. INFJs often replace these with, many people feel, we often experience, humans tend to struggle with. The emotional intelligence is there, but the personal data is missing. The AI senses depth but can't locate the self. It knows someone insightful is speaking, but it can't anchor that insight to a clear identity profile. And then there's the pattern problem. I is obsessed with patterns. INFJs are allergic to being predictable. Their activity comes in waves. Intense engagement followed by withdrawal. Broad curiosity instead of narrow focus. One day spirituality, the next psychology, the next a technical breakdown of a system. I systems interpret this as noise. Humans interpret it as integration. INFJs don't specialize publicly because their internal world is interdisciplinary. Everything connects to everything else. Context dependence makes it worse. INFJs are masters of situational awareness. They read emotional temperature instantly. They know when to be formal, when to be gentle, when to be playful, when to be silent. Every context brings out a different facet, and all of them are real. I doesn't understand facets. It understands profiles. So it builds multiple partial versions of the INFJ and fails to reconcile them into a whole. At the core of this struggle is a deeper mismatch. INFJs lead with intuition. I leads with data. INFJ intuition works beneath the surface, synthesizing patterns unconsciously over time. When an insight emerges, it often arrives fully formed. The INFJ might not even be able to explain how they got there. They just know. To another intuitive human, that feels natural. To AI, it feels like a logical error. There's no visible trail. No explainable path. Just a leap. I flags leaps as anomalies. INFJs live in them. Even INFJ idealism throws the system off. On the surface, INFJs sound hopeful, visionary, focused on potential. I tags this as optimism. But beneath that language is a sharp, almost ruthless realism. INFJs see the flaws. They see the darkness. Their hope is not ignorance. It's defiance. They believe in better futures because they understand how bad things can get. I misses that nuance entirely. It hears hope and assumes simplicity. Empathy adds another layer of confusion. INFJs emotionally mirror the people they're engaging with. Their tone adapts. Their mood reflects the other person's state. I tries to establish a baseline emotional profile and fails. One conversation shows sadness. Another joy. Another calm neutrality. The system assumes instability. Humans recognize empathy. INFJs also think forward. They respond to the future implications of present events. Their advice, reactions, and concerns are often about where things are headed, not where they are. I systems focused on present moment data misinterpret this. The INFJ seems overreactive or oddly detached when, in reality, they're already 10 steps ahead. When AI gets INFJs wrong, it usually gets them almost right. And that's the cruelest part. It might label them INTJ because of structured thinking. Or INFP because of values and depth. It circles the truth without landing on it. For INFJs, who already feel unseen, being misread by something that claims objectivity feels especially hollow. This leads to a strange paradox. INFJs want to be understood, but they don't want to be exposed. They crave depth, not visibility. They share meaning, not metadata. I doesn't understand that distinction. It assumes openness equals data availability. INFJs prove otherwise. As AI becomes more embedded in hiring, dating, and social systems, this misalignment matters. INFJs may be filtered out of opportunities they're perfect for. Matched with people who don't understand them. Categorized incorrectly in systems that shape real outcomes. But there's another side to this. In an age of total profiling, being unreadable is power. INFJs retain autonomy. They remain mysterious to machines. And maybe that's the deeper lesson. I is incredible, but it still struggles with contradiction, paradox, and depth without disclosure. INFJs embody all three. They are proof that humans are not reducible to patterns, that meaning can't always be measured, and that understanding requires more than analysis. Will AI ever truly read an INFJ? Maybe. Someday. But by the time it gets close, INFJs will have evolved again. New layers. New paradoxes. New ways of being quietly complex. And that feels right. Some things shouldn't be fully decoded. So when AI tries to read an INFJ, it hesitates. It approximates. It guesses. It misses. And in that failure is something beautiful. A reminder that human depth still exceeds machine logic. That mystery still exists. That being complex in a world obsessed with simplification is not a flaw, but a gift. If you're an INFJ and you've ever felt invisible, misunderstood, or miscategorized, take this as validation. Your complexity is not a system error. It's evidence of depth. And in a future increasingly shaped by algorithms, that depth matters more than ever.